Hey, great. Well, welcome everyone to this webinar on the new FSA program, Marketing Assistance for Specialty Crops. It's great to see so much interest. It's like from people all over with very different weather. So this is a webinar hosted by Go Farm Connect, which is a program of renewing the countryside and with much support from partners. My name is Katie Kubavchik. I work on the Go Farm Connect team. So in a minute, we'll get started with our speakers. But first, we're just going to do a few housekeeping things. So we have a very large group tonight. So because of that, you are all muted. You can't unmute yourself. So you can use the chat for comments or resources, and just please keep in mind the size of the group when using that. If you're finding you have connection problems, it might be because of the large group, and so you could try turning off your video. Again, because of the large group and maybe a very active chat, we are going to have you direct questions to one person. So in the chat, when you go to see the blue box, you can drop down there to ask me questions. Hopefully that comes up first for you. That will go to one person. That will go to Laura. She's going to collect those questions, and then we will go over them at the end. One other thing to note, if you want to have the speaker view, you can right click on the image of the presenter, and you can pin their image. We are going to follow up with this after this webinar with the recording. So you can expect an email with that and some other resources, including an email that you can send questions to. So just a brief introduction to Go Farm Connect. So this is a program through Renewing the Countryside. It is a group of 35 connectors throughout Minnesota and Wisconsin, many of who are farmers themselves. Our project is focused on reaching out to non-traditional farmers and making sure they're connected to farming resources, including USDA resources, such as this program. So a lot of the work is relationships and building trust with farmers and agencies. So here's some of our connectors that we'd highlight. Moses, he's in Cambridge, Minnesota, can work with farmers in Swahili. Kazua, she's in Maplewood, Minnesota, can work with farmers in Hmong. Nora in St. Paul can work with farmers in Arabic. And Danny, also in St. Paul, is a connector who can work with farmers in Spanish. So like I said, we have 35 in Minnesota and Wisconsin. We have a short poll that we're just curious who here has worked with FSA before or any USDA programs. If you want to just do a quick answer to these two questions, it would be helpful for us to know who is in our audience tonight. So with that, we'll move on to our first speaker. Erik Heimark is presenting first. He is a farm business management specialist with Renewing the Countryside, focused on this Go Farm Connect project. He also has his own farm in Minnesota and has already applied for the program. So he's going to walk us through what this program looks like.
Well, thanks for that, Katie, and welcome everybody. We did not expect this would get this much attention, but it's wonderful. I really hope that we can help you in the application process and that this takes a lot of the questions out of it and some of those fears. So you've probably heard a lot about this program all over the place. Basically, what it's called is the Marketing Assistance for Specialty Crop Program, but that's about all it has to do with marketing, is just in the name only. So really, it's probably best for you to think of this program as a subsidy-like program, all right? Basically, how subsidies work is that you report a percent of income that you've had on a certain crop, and then the government gives you a percent payment on that, usually like a 2% or something small. This is very, very common in the USDA FSA world. A lot of our crop and soy farmers and big pork farmers and all that, they're very used to getting these, and FSA is very used to giving them out. Again, it works on a payment that you get on a percent of the income you've derived from your farming endeavor. All right. And on this this program, you're going to get to pick whether you want to use 2023 numbers or 2024 numbers. All right. The other nice thing about this program is that, a lot of us specialty crop growers are used to applying for grants or getting in these programs where we have to put money up front and then we get paid back and all that stuff. You don't have to do that for this. Basically, if you qualify for an eligible specialty crop sale, you're going to get a little bit of money back. And the nice part is that money doesn't have a whole lot of strings attached to it. You don't have to say that, oh, I spent the money on this, or you don't have to report that, you did X with this money, or that, you spent it on verifiable things. It's basically your money. You get to do with it what you want. It's intended for you to use it for marketing, but it's a subsidy and you can use that money for whatever you'd like. So we're joined tonight by Brandon Dahl from FSA. He's a CED, which stands for County Executive Director of the metro area. I know a lot of folks are here from Minnesota and Wisconsin, so they're probably used to St. Paul. But for those of you who are listening from elsewhere, that's kind of our big metro area in the state. And so he's going to talk a little bit about what the program is and some of the other things that are involved with it before we go any further.
All right, good evening, everyone. So the marketing assistance for specialty crop program here is currently allotted for $2 billion worth of funding. With that, it's again to help specialty crop producers expand domestic markets and develop new markets for their crops going into 2025. So it's more or less, it's an application process. These payments won't go out until all of the applications are completed, which is the deadline of January 8th of 2025. So there is that time frame to get your application in. And it's a max dollar per payment or per farmer based upon our payment limitations is $125,000, but more if this information is coming in the next slides here of how that would reach, but it's more or less, we're looking at some payment factors here, but we really won't know until what your payment would look like until after January 8th here.
Excellent.
Erik, is that kind of
yeah,
hit
thank you very much, Brandon. Brandon's going to be joining us at the end of this webinar for answering questions too. So if you've got a real good one, a real zinger, hopefully he can help us answer that. So, we're farmers, right? We're practical people. You probably want to know, okay, how much money am I going to get out of this? And so we're going to talk about that right away. So again, basically how subsidies work is you claim the amount of income that you had that year or the year prior on that eligible crop, and then you get a percent of that as a government payment. So how this is going to work is that there's these different sales ranges or tiers that you'll get a percent payout based on those tiers. So, typically these tiers go down in percentage on most commodity subsidies. So typically you're going to get your highest payout on your first $50,000, and then it will go, down from there. All right. We don't know what the percentage is going to be. They are not even going to make that decision until all of the applications are in. So that's going to be, January 8th, 9th, 10th, whatever, someday after that. Based on past subsidy payments, it might be a range between 2.6 to 10.3. Now, do not hold us on that and do not hold FSA accountable for that. That is our best guess. We do not know what that number is, but based on past subsidy payments, it'll be somewhere in the neighborhood of that. All right. So let's look at an example. Let's say a specialty crop farmer had $52,000 in gross sales on their specialty crop farm, let's say in 2024. Of that 52,000, 49,999 is going to be at that first percentage. And let's take this example as the lowest, so we don't set our expectations too high at 2.6, right? So that first 50,000 is at that 2.6. Now we go to the next tier for the remaining 2,000. That's going to be at a slightly lower tier. So I just put 2.3. I'm just making this stuff up. So basically, your payment would be $1,300 if you made 53,000, 52,000 on your specialty crop. Now I'm taking the lowest percentage. We can look a little bit more rosy at this. Let's say it is more of that 10%. You're looking maybe a little bit more like at a $53,000 payout. All right. So in the past, I've done this with a number of farmers over the last couple of days. It's taken on average between a half hour and an hour and a half to get through the application process. Basically, if you're making even $2,000 in specialty crop sales, I think it's going to pay to apply. Because even at 2%, you're still going to be making like $40 in a half hour or hour and a half. So that's, again, these numbers, we do not know them yet. We're just trying to give you a best guess of whether this is going to be a good investment of your time. And I hope you kind of realize that this is going to be probably a pretty good use of your time. I know a lot of us have done those government programs before, signed up, spent a lot of time doing paperwork, and then got nothing. Well, I think this one is actually going to pay out a little bit better than some of those. So if you look at the fact sheet, there's a whole list of things that would make you eligible. I'm going to kind of flip it around, and I'm just going to say these are basic disqualifiers. So if you're a specialty crop grower, you're probably gonna be eligible for this, unless some of these weird circumstances happen. All right. So if you're not farming at the time of application, so if you're not farming today, you are not eligible for this. All right. It's designed so that someone says, "Oh, there's a subsidy program. I'm gonna start planting carrots next year, and I'm gonna be a carrot farmer." Well, no, this is intended for farmers that are in the business of farming. You can't just make something up. The next one is that you do need to have an ownership, or at least share in the risk of the business ownership on the farm. So scenarios that I can think of here is if you manage a farm, but you don't own it, you are not eligible for this. Or if, maybe your parents own it, but you work on the farm and you don't have a percent ownership, you would not be eligible for this. If you were, if your parents own it and you have an ownership share or a profit share, then you would. But if you're just employed or something by the farm, it does not qualify you. But in that scenario, your parents would be, so have them apply. If you are not compliant with the highly erodible land and wetland conservation rules, of course, you can't get this money. That is a form you're going to have to fill out. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But basically, the FSA is going to know if you're in compliance or not. So don't worry about that too much, but double check that you are not, damaging highly erodible land or wetlands with your farm practices. And then if you have a controlled substance violation, you're not eligible, as well as if you don't complete the form. Okay, so if you miss one signature, you're no longer eligible. And that's why we're going to really pressure you guys into filling out all these forms in completion, even if you think you've done them already, because we want to make sure that everyone is going to get a cut of this, of these dollars. Now, those are the basic disqualifiers. This one is the big one. You have to meet the definition of specialty crops, and that is a legal USDA definition. We got a QR code there and a link. If you are unsure, please look at those things. That the link in that QR code has it's a USDA table that has basically every crop you could think of and whether they're a specialty crop or not. Definitely take a look at that if you've got a question, because it is a little bit tricky. This is a legal definition, right? So things like maple syrup are not on that definition, but maple sap is. So maple syrup producers out there, you can still apply. You just have to go on maple sap. All right. It's a doozy. Sweet corn is a specialty crop according to this definition, but popcorn is not. I would think wild rice would be a specialty crop, but it is not. Sugar beets are not, but regular beets are. So just really double check that and make sure that you do have an eligible crop. And also really kind of piece through your records and make sure that all your crops, you're not just reporting all crop sales, because, if you're a specialty crop farmer like me, you're doing other things too. You've got maybe a field of oats or corn or something like that, or maybe some livestock. Make sure those sales aren't eligible. It can only be specialty crops in this definition. Oops, and I kind of knew this was going to happen. Right, are we back online, folks? Okay, great. All right, so let's jump into how to apply. So on the FSA website, there is kind of a nice little list there that you can see of all the different forms that you'd need to apply for. The form that is for the MASC program itself is Form FSA 1140. All right, so that's the big one. We're going to talk about each one of these because, again, I'm encouraging everyone to just do all the forms. Most of them are just contact information, check boxes, signatures, and you're done. So if you need a list to kind of see what you need to do, I would reference this on their website. But let's go ahead and just jump into some of the forms. So the first form that you're going to do, and I did see in the poll, a lot of people are familiar with FSA and have probably applied. If you have done anything with FSA, you have filled out this form before. So this should probably be very familiar to most of you. Again, I'm going to encourage you guys to do it again because I want to make sure it is on file and it is filed correctly. Now, again, this form is very simple. It's just contact information. The hardest thing on here is going to be this question here, your taxpayer identification number or your social. All right. Now, you got to be a little bit careful on applying with this if you have a legal entity. So if you have an LLC or an S Corp or a partnership or some sort of legal entity that you are operating the farm under, you need to apply under that entity. So you're going to need to fill this form out under that entity as well as yourself. All right. So I have a S Corp, so I had to fill one out for Maple Ridge Farms, and then I had to fill one out for myself. All right. You'll have to look up that EIN number or TIN or social if you're a sole proprietor and put that here. If you don't know what the EIN or TIN is and you have a legal entity, if you can remember way back when you filed with the Secretary of State or whoever it is in your state that you create your business with, you would have gotten a piece of paper that at the very top it had a big long, I think 8 or 9 digit number on it called an EIN or a TIN. That's the number that would go here on the legal entity page. All right, so fill in the demographic information, sign it, and that form is done. But again, if you have a legal entity, you're probably going to need to do this twice. If you have a partnership or you have multiple people involved in your LLC, you're going to have to do it for the legal entity and everyone involved in that partnership or legal entity as well. So double check on that. Next form is going to be that AD 1026. This is the highly erodible land and wetlands form. Again, it's just contact information, and then you can kind of go down to this area here. This is just asking you basically, have you damaged wetlands or are you in compliance with these wetland guides and highly erodible guides? Most of you, I'm guessing, are going to probably just check no for most of these. But please do not sign this form until you have double checked with FSA that you are not in one of these areas with highly erodible land. Because if you are and you signed it and you got some of this money coming out, you may be asked to pay that back. All right. So fill this out. Don't sign it until you verify with FSA or NRCS or someone in the USDA office that your land is not in a highly erodible land area. All right. Next is going to be the CCC 941 form. It's just one little check mark here and put the 2025 here, sign, and you're done. This form is to certify that you have not made over $900,000 in 2024 or in 2025 you plan to make less than $900,000. All right. Probably a pretty easy one for most of us. And again, you need to fill this out for your legal entity as well as for yourself. So my farm, Maple Ridge Farms, did one of these, I did one of these, and that's how it has to work. Now, if you did make over $900,000, congratulations, we're all jealous. But it doesn't disqualify you. We're going to talk about that in a little bit on some of these uncommon circumstances. But put a pin in that. We'll come back to that in a minute. All right. There's one more, well, two more forms here now. CCC 902. This was actually the easiest one for me to fill out. So when I called the FSA office, I was able to do this on the phone with one of the FSA folks. They call this their interview form. And I don't really know why they need it or why they asked for this information, but it's basically to ask, do you rent your land? Do you own your land? Do you rent your machinery? Do you own your machinery? How do you get capital to run your business? Do you have a loan? Do you self-finance? Who provides the labor on your farm? And I didn't have to fill out any of this. Again, the guy at FSA just asked me the questions. I answered them. He filled them out, sent it to me, said, hey, does that all look good? And if it looks good, sign it and send it back to me. So if you are going into an office, you probably will be doing this, with an FSA person, and they'll be filling it out for you. If you're doing it online, you can probably do a couple of back and forths or something, or you could probably call them and do it online. All right, and then we get into the big MASC form, right? The FSA 1140, the one we've been waiting for. Again, just contact information. You're going to check what year of specialty crop sales you want to report, whether it's 2023 or 2024. You're going to put the total specialty crop sales you had in that year here, sign, date, and you're done. The hardest part of this whole application for you folks is probably going to be coming up with this number here, total specialty crop sales. Because if you're like me, you're probably doing a lot of other stuff on your farm, right? You might have some eggs or some meat or some other things going on. And so your total sales on your farm is not what goes here. And your total specialty crop sales is probably going to be less than your total farm sales, all right? So let's take a look at how to come up with that number. So this is from my farm, Maple Ridge Farm. So I'm looking at my two different sales numbers, okay, I'm going to want to go with this one. They're pretty much the same, but you want to pick your highest income year between those two because, of course, you're going to work your way a little higher up in that percentage payment. So I'm like most of you, I'm doing lots of different things. I'm selling to food hubs. I go to several different farmers markets. I sell to some wholesale accounts. And then I have a farm stand where I sell my stuff at the end of end of my driveway at my farm, but I'm also buying and selling from other farmers. I'm buying in other specialty crops when I don't have them. I buy and sell meat and art and crafts. So these sales, this is going to be a sticky wicket here. I'm going to have to go back through my records and pull out all of the stuff that doesn't qualify. So that's all the art, that's all the crafts, that's all the meat, the eggs, all of those things. And then I'm going to have to pull out the specialty crops that I bought in from other farmers. So I had to go into my chart of accounts and look for my cost of goods sold. That's what I track of all of the sales that I'm selling out of my farm stand. And so I basically took this number here and I subtracted it from all the other stuff I sold. So this number here is just the specialty crops that I sold. So big letdown from this number, but this is what's real, right? This is the specialty crops that I grew. Now, when I look at my other market channels, food hubs, wholesale accounts, that's all produce. That's all vegetables and fruits. I can count all of that. When I look at my farmers markets, I would judge that probably 90% of those are produce, fruit and vegetables from my farm. But I am doing some other things. I make my own sauerkraut. I make dried kale flakes and sun-dried tomatoes. So I got to dig into the records on my farmers market sales. And so I track things in Square. So I did a Square report with all my sales on the different farmers markets. And I throw my miscellaneous stuff, I just throw it in this category called dried goods report. It's got more than dried goods, but that's what I call it. So I've got different spices that I grow and dry and sell that way. All of that's under the definition. You can have dried specialty crops. That's fine. Sauerkraut, well, sauerkraut is not a specialty crop. it's made from one. It's made from cabbage, and this sauerkraut is made from the cabbage I grow here. So let's come to back to that in a little bit. I'm also buying and selling some grains. I'm next to a local grain farmer, and so I buy some of their stuff, make pancake mixes and other things like that, and sell that. Well, that doesn't even fit in specialty crop definition. So all of that income's got to go. And then I'm looking at this sauerkraut, and it is made with some of my cabbage, but I would need to have a record of selling myself essentially the raw cabbage, turning it in and then turning it into sauerkraut. And I don't have that record. I haven't kept something that would show that. So I'm not going to include this sales either. And plus it's not a whole lot, so I'm not too worried about it. So out of that, 1,500 of sales of other things at the farmers market, I can only claim about 1,000 of that. So that's what's going to go here, not my total sales from the whole year. It's going to be everything minus everything that's not a specialty crop. So that number is going to be a lot less. All right. Finally, you probably are going to want to get paid, and you probably want to get paid sooner than later. So please fill out the automatic payment forms. FSA takes at least 30 days to issue a check. So fill this form out or just provide them with a voided check or your banking account information. A lot of times the staff is going to fill this one out for you anyway. You just have to give them the information and provide a voided check. And then you'll get your payment a lot quicker than 30 days plus. So that's one more form there, and then we've done it. All right. So now the key is find the location where you need to turn these forms in. Now it's FSA policy that you can turn in your forms anywhere, and they will find the right people. The county that represents you. I'm asking you all, please don't do that. Turn it into the county that represents you, so FSA doesn't have to do that rigmarole. Things can get lost that way. So it's just best if you identify the service center that is in your county or that governs your county and turn the forms in there, not just the nearest city. So to do this, first thing to do would be to just Google USDA Service Center Locator. The first thing that comes up will be with this guy. You'll see a map of all the states. Click on the state that's yours. I'm a Minnesota kid, so I clicked on Minnesota, and then the map of Minnesota came up with all the counties. I'm from Aiken County, so I clicked Aiken. And then what came up next was this guy, and I got to be very careful on here not to push. There we go. So what came up is the offices that govern my county. If you're in a small rural county like I am, you might not have an FSA person in the office every day. So you might have to go to the next agency that kind of governs your county as well. And that was Baxter. So when I did my application, I called the Baxter office and I sent my paperwork there. All right. So please find that office that this paperwork should go to. It's going to save FSA a step. It's going to save you a step. So it is worth it. Use those online tools and you shouldn't have too much trouble figuring out where to get these forms. So that is the application process. It's probably as clear as mud to you all right now. So we're going to go through a couple of those real uncommon situations that still allow you to apply. The first one we're going to start with is those new producers. We haven't forgot about you guys. You can report, you're still eligible for this subsidy if you are a new producer in 2025, but you have to meet all of this criteria. Okay, the first criteria is that you have to have began producing specialty crops in 2023 or 2024, and those crops just weren't ready to sell yet. So I'm thinking like apples, peaches, perennial crops, essentially, things that are coming online a little bit later. You planted them, but you got to wait till they mature and then you finally get a crop. All right. So if you've already started growing them, but you just don't have sales in 2023 and 2024, you can go off of your projected 2025 harvest. Okay. There is another form to fill out. and we can help you with that at Renewing the Countryside or at Go Farm Connectors. We can try to help you figure that out. There's data out there on that. The other thing is, if you began producing a specialty crop in 2024, but it was only a partial yield, let's say it's maybe one of those perennial crops again that just isn't coming online yet, or it just barely started, and you didn't get a full yield that you normally should. In that case, you can count 2025's projected yields. All right. Next, if you are a beginning farmer growing specialty crops in 2025, and you have a legally binding contract. So this is, you don't have anything in the ground right now, but you have a contract. Let's say you have, let's say you're selling carrots to the school next April, and you don't have them planted, but you have a legally binding contract that says, yes, I will deliver, 50 pounds of carrots on April 10th. That is okay. You can use that data for your 2025 sales for this form. Or if you have that specialty crop planted in the ground at the time of application. Now, I'm from Minnesota, so the only crop that I can think of that would qualify for this would be garlic, where you don't have to have that legally binding contract. It's just already in the ground. But I see they've got a lot of people here from Yuma Valley and Texas and whatnot. So I know you guys start planting your onions maybe around this time, or maybe your broccoli or something like that. If you've got a field that's already planted and you don't have a legally binding contract, you're still eligible to apply. So feel free to please apply, and you can use those 2025 projected yield numbers. All right, let's go to another situation. Before we do that, if you are in one of these situations, you have another form to fill out. Gotta love those forms, right? So FSA 1141, basically this is detailing out your crop that you're growing or intended to grow, how much expected yield you're gonna get in acres, and expected acres of planting. And I know most of us are doing our planting in square feet. I've helped a couple farmers with this form so far, and I've got a little calculator thing in a spreadsheet that we can calculate square feet to acres. It's a little bit more of a step, and feel free to reach out to me or some of the other connectors, and we can help you with that. But basically, we'll get that information into this. You'll note your projected sales here, sign date, and give them the form. All right. Now, I'm going to caution everybody, if you're doing this form and if you're doing the other form, please, please, please have a verifiable record of those sales. Have a justification. This money will be scrutinized. You can guarantee that. All right. And your county committee can audit this. So they can say, I need to see your record. So whatever number you put in here, please make sure you have a record to back that up. Last thing is, let's talk about the value-added piece, like that sauerkraut I was talking about, because if a lot of us are doing this, right? We are turning our specialty crop products into something a little bit more valuable as a value-added product. So if you have value-added products, they are eligible, but they must be made with your specialty crops. So you can't go out and buy somebody else's jam, berries, and make your own jam and use that for your specialty crop sales. That's not eligible. If you grew your own berries and made the jam with it, that works. And if you are in that category, so you grew your own, you made the value-added product out of your own grown specialty crop, you can't count the jam price or the pickle price. You have to count that raw specialty crop price. All right. So if you're making pickles, you got to count the price of what the cucumbers were in that pickle, in that jar of pickles, or that price of strawberries in that jam of strawberry jam. Now, you use good numbers here. You can't, don't fabricate that you paid yourself $1 bazillion for those pickles or for those cucumbers that you use to make the pickles. It has to be a published, reasonable, and verifiable price. All right. So this isn't the time to go make that up. Do your diligence and find, if you don't know what that price is, and a lot of us don't, right? Try to find something equivalent, maybe at the local grocery store for that raw commodity price. Don't just make something up there. Put some thought into it. Make sure you can feel good about that number and defend it. All right, and then for those lucky folks who made over $900,000 this year, or project to make over $900,000 in the next year, it doesn't mean you're ineligible. But of that over $900,000, 75% of it has to come from farm income. All right, so you can't, let's say you have a farm stand or something, or you're given farm tours or something, and most of the sales on your business is coming from t-shirt sales or something not farm product related. 75% of your AGI on that over $900,000 has to come from farming activities. Then you're eligible. And of course, you have another form to fill out with that. That's the FSA 942. All right, so keep that in mind if you're one of these lucky people that have made quite a bit of money. All right, so that is the basics of applying. We have read a lot of questions that you guys have asked as you signed up, and we're going to try to anticipate a lot of those questions in a back and forth Q&A session here. I'm going to introduce you guys to my colleague, Ariel Pressman, who's an extension agent for the U of M, and who has just been critical, absolutely critical in putting this webinar on. Luckily, he's had a lot of experience doing this sort of stuff. Ariel, introduce yourself, and we'll jump into the frequently asked questions.
Yeah, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name's Ariel. I'm based out of Minneapolis. I was a longtime vegetable grower, like a lot of folks in this call, and I currently work with Extension on wholesale readiness and a lot of other issues. And I've been working hand in hand with Go Farm Connect and Erik and Katie and everybody else in this team to kind of help get as much assistance out to farmers as quickly as possible. So we're going to go over some FAQs here to hopefully answer a bunch of questions.
So, Ariel, can farmers project their 2025 sales instead of using their 2023 or 2024 sales?
It's a great question. Yeah, we've been getting this a lot from farmers we're working with. If you are growing in 2023 or 2024, you must use one of those numbers. So just because you were planning to double your sales in 2025, unfortunately, you just have to use the numbers from 2023 or 2024. You cannot project what you're going to be making next year.
And I had a unique situation yesterday where the farmer was expecting a bigger crop of apples to come online the next year, but they were already selling other crops, specialty crops, in 2023 and 2024. They had to use those, even though they would have had more sales in 2025. So just be aware of that. Which farmers need to fill out all of the forms?
Yeah, so default to all the farmers should fill out all the forms. Obviously, we mentioned if you are one of those kind of rarer new farmers that is going to be eligible for the program, you also have to fill out that 1141. Other farmers do not need to fill that one out. But do not assume that the FSA has documents on file or has anything. So if you check with the FSA and they say only submit a couple forms, that's great. Otherwise, definitely default to assuming all of the forms need to be filled out for this current year.
Do farmers need to submit records with the documents?
Yeah, so this is something we're hearing, unsurprisingly, a lot of confusion over. So to be very clear, you must have records for what you're selling. That being said, no records are required to actually submit for this funding. So you don't have to get all of that together necessarily to submit to the FSA office. Unlike some other FSA programs, you also don't necessarily need to submit, say, a deed showing that you own your farmland or a lease showing where you rent. It's very straightforward. You really just fill out those 5 forms we talked about. That's all you need to submit. But I do want to reinforce what Erik said. You could be audited. And if you get audited, you want to make sure you've got the records in your home. And just so you know, those records that you need to keep for yourself don't necessarily need to be like QuickBooks records. They need to be something reliable where a county committee could go, okay, we understand how you got to that number you were talking about.
Is this a competitive grant, and will everyone that applies get funding?
Yeah, so I think for all of us in specialty crop world, this is a little weird, right? We're used to applying for things like the value added producer grant or some of these other government grants where we're competing with other farmers and only some of us are going to get funding. This is very different. So if you qualify for the program, if you get all of your forms completed, you will get some amount of funding. So it is not competitive in that sense. It's really just the number of farmers that sign up will be essentially dividing up the amount of money that's been allocated to this program. So I just really want to say that I think that especially makes it worthwhile for more farmers to apply that might normally want to apply for programs that we hear about because you are going to get a payment. We don't know exactly what it'll be, but you'll get a payment.
And do farmers have to provide information about how they're going to spend their MASC money?
Yeah, so same thing. This is not really a traditional grant like we're used to, where you might have to propose a budget and say how you're going to spend the money and then provide documentation to show you did spend it that way. This is your money. So in the end of the day, you're going to get the payment you get. You don't have to submit anything saying, hey, can I use this for a truck or I want to use this to buy wax boxes. All you're going to submit is this was my specialty crop income. You'll get a payment based on that. And then there is no follow-up from the FSA seeing how you spent the money. It's your money that you can spend as you choose.
Sounds nice. And do CSA sales qualify as specialty crop sales?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is especially important. Some of us may be working with FSA offices that are not as familiar with things like CSAs. So your specialty crop sales that are your CSA are absolutely eligible. Now, keep in mind, if you're selling things through your CSA, like eggs, maple syrup, things like Erik was showing at his farm stand that are not specialty crops, that doesn't count. But any kind of fruits and vegetables, specialty crops you're selling as your CSA, that absolutely counts as specialty crop sales.
When is this application due?
This is due January 8th. I mean this in the kindest way possible. We're dealing with the government, right? So the deadline's the deadline. So make sure you get this in. We've been advised by our friends at the FSA, if you can get it in earlier, that's great because that gives the FSA more time to let you know if a form wasn't filled out correctly or you need to correct something. They are not going to be accepting late applications. It's not going to be extended. So January 8th is the deadline.
We should also say that we know there might be the possibility of a government shutdown, and of course, all of this is out of our control. I think the best thing to do is to just go forward and please apply as soon as you can, and just hope for the best. Can farmers submit their MASC applications electronically?
Yes. So I already have a number of friends that have done it this way. You've got to keep in mind, it's the government again. They might be a little persnickety about your signature. So we recommend you reach out directly to your county FSA office and ask them how you can submit it electronically, but you absolutely can.
And where can people get help when applying?
Yeah, so if you want to flip over to the next slide, this is for Minnesota and Wisconsin-based farmers. Hopefully, I know there's folks from all over the country here. Hopefully, there are resources locally for you. Our funding allows us to work with farmers in Minnesota and Wisconsin. The QR code there is a link to a farmer sign-up form. So if you're a farmer that needs help with these documents, if you want somebody to get in touch with you, it's a sign-up form that takes 2 minutes. We will match you with a TA provider who can help. If you or somebody in your network needs help in a language that is not English, we have those folks in our network and we can make sure you get the help as well. So I really recommend people do it. This is what the form looks like. It is super straightforward. It takes 2 minutes. As Erik was saying, this is a really unique opportunity for our community. This is a really unique opportunity for groups of farmers that might not normally feel like these types of programs are worth it for them. So we really want to make sure that we're reaching as many farmers as possible. So I really encourage folks, fill out that form. Please share it with your network broadly for farmers based in Minnesota and Wisconsin.
And we're really sorry to you folks that aren't in Minnesota and Wisconsin. That's just where our funding is located. So I wish we could help you, but that's not what we can do. Do feel free, if you're not in Minnesota or Wisconsin, you can email info@gofarmconnect.com, and we can send you some resources of local providers that might be able to get you some assistance in applying for this. And I just please encourage everyone to fill out this form, even if you're feeling super comfortable going in the FSA office or filling those forms online and turning them in. If you put your information in here for us and another program like this comes up, we will already have you in our system and we can reach out and help you. So I really encourage you to fill out one of these farmer requests for assistance, even if you think you don't need it.
Yeah, and if you missed the QR code, we're also going to be sending out all the links from this presentation to all the attendees afterwards as well.
So with that, we are now going to open it up to questions. If you're just coming in, what we did is we had a person in the chat, or an area titled Ask Me Questions. And for the big questions, we wanted that in there, and we had somebody monitoring it. That person's Laura. And Laura will now come in and help ask those questions for you. And then Brandon and Ariel and myself will help try to answer those as best as we can. We are sitting here at 6:48, so we've got a good amount of time for questions here. So with that, I'll introduce Laura here. Laura is also a farmer and a friend of mine, and I'll turn it over to her.
Great. Thank you all for your questions. There are so many, so I'm glad we have so much time. I'm just going to go through them in the order that I received them. Some of them we covered, but I'll ask them again just in case it got missed. So the first question was a question about eligibility of nonprofits.
Brandon, is that one you know the answer to?
I'm stumped.
There you go. You're good. All right. I was just trying to hit my audio button here. So as far as the nonprofit goes, it's depending upon how it is structured. But we do encourage everyone to apply, and we can work with them one-on-one with their questions of, the nonprofits and things like that. But the caveat there is making sure that they are growing and selling that crop. Because if you don't grow it, you won't have any sales for revenue of this program here.
So the next question was, can farmers use whatever funds they get to proportionally give food away instead of selling it? Or is there not that specificity in reporting?
There is no reporting needed. So spend the money on whatever you want. I can't believe I said that out loud. Okay, maybe be wise about it.
This came up a few times. What happens with the government shutdown, if that happens?
Brandon, I think I'll default to you.
I will take this one. So I probably will hit two questions here. For any government shutdown or any questions about extension, is right now, in the event of a lapse in appropriations, producers will still be able to mail, email, fax, digitally get it to us. We will take those applications when we arrive back in the office. And as far as the extensions go, the deadline is the deadline that we are sticking to. So January 8th, we have them in the office. We will process them and make those applications into to our county committee for determination.
Great. And then a lot of questions about value-added products. Does it include value-added products made from farm produce?
Yeah, so the value-added product, whether you're making jam or pickles or a bouquet of flowers or something like that, a Christmas wreath or whatever, You can count those sales, but you do need to have a verifiable record of some sort of transaction or notation in your business of, hey, my wholesale price of cucumbers is this, or my seconds on my strawberries I sell for this. And then you can use that price for the amount of strawberries or pickles or whatever you have in that product. So some heavy lifting on record keeping. You're going to need to know exactly how much product you used in that value added or how much specialty crop you've used in this value added product, and you're going to have a reliable, verifiable, published price on that. It's not impossible, and we can help you find some of those numbers, but you really got to dig into that.
I will add a little bit to this is it's going back to that raw commodity. So making sure that you have your prices set to back to it. If it takes a pound of cucumbers to make your jar of pickles, you bring it back to that cucumber price.
Next question is, what are the ballpark percentage figures for A, B, C, D multiplier or the segments? Do you want to talk about that again?
Don't ask FSA that. They can't tell you, and you're going to put them in a very awkward position. What I gave you is just my best guess, from stuff we've seen out there. Yeah, I don't know. Brandon, do you want to, Ariel, do you have?
I can jump in just real quick. So what we base the numbers off of is when this program first came out, there was a notice of funding availability. And in that notice of funding availability, the government gave examples of what they believe the different percentage payments would be based on how many people apply. So the range we gave was based on if less farmers than normal apply for this program or way more farmers than normal apply for this program. The graduated rates are pretty subtle. So that first $50,000 in one example might be 11%, and then the next $100,000 might be like 10.5%. It doesn't change dramatically. It just kind of slowly goes down as your business gets bigger. And importantly, it's graduated just like your taxes. So the first 50,000 stays at that number, and then the next group is at a different number.
A lot of questions about if you are a new farmer, so you don't have previous sales records, or there was a question about somebody who took a break from farming after COVID. So what should those folks do? What would be their next steps, or how can they apply?
So if you took just a 1-year break, well, then use 2023. That's the easiest. So I think if you've taken a break more than that, you would need to either have a legally binding contract for the next year, or you would have had to plant, if you're in Minnesota, Wisconsin, you'd have had to plant garlic. For those other states down south, maybe you've already put in a crop, but that's about it for new producers. Now, maybe you're in that producer camp where you have planted some perennials of some kind, like apple trees or peaches or something like that, and they're just now coming online in 2025. That would work.
Great.
I would
Go ahead.
I would just add in there, if you have a question about anything of like, I took a break or whatever it is, just ask the FSA office, that we can help you out understand, what your farming operation was, where it went, whatever it may be, because we're making sure that we are looking at your applicable 2023 or 2024 to look at that 2025. But if you were farming in the past, we need to know what's going on there. So just ask your FSA office.
And then questions about what are the tax implications? Is this taxable farm income? What does that look like?
Yes.
Now, you guys, you farmers just love avoiding taxes, right? It's better to take the money and pay a little tax, all right? So just think about that. Yeah, it's income. You're going to get taxed on it.
So something that we would do on my farm is we would use that money for a piece of equipment. So it was basically a net zero. Get a deduction. A lot of questions about, will this be a multi-year program or just one time?
As of this time, it is a one-time program that we are administering this program right now, depending upon what farm bill comes out and how Congress decides to put in potential programs. We don't know, but as of right now, this is a one-time program here.
The next question says, we had collards and mustard greens planted, but weren't able to sell any because of wild hogs and boars rooting in them. How should we proceed?
You wouldn't have any income to report, so unfortunately that would be a no-go. Now, and help me on this one, Brandon, because let's say you somehow got a NAP payment for that. That income you could report. So I think, correct me on that if I'm wrong, Brandon.
You are correct. If you did get a NAP payment or a crop insurance indemnity for your specialty crop, those payments can be included in your application because without a disaster event or something that affected your production, you would have been able to sell that. However, because of that, you can utilize those indemnity payments or that NAP payment to be included, but it's specifically in your calendar year of sales. So making sure that that payment came in 2023 or 2024 to be included.
Another specific situation between 2024 and 2023, 2024 was much better for my farm and crop, but that year we rented out our orchard to a friend, but I managed the orchard. Can I use the 2024 numbers even though my farm business didn't make that money?
It's got to follow the legal entity. So if the orchard sales went into your friends or neighbors, I think that's not something you can use.
And then microgreens, do they qualify as a specialty crop?
I'm gonna hesitantly say yes. I think they do.
FSA marked all of my cropland as alfalfa and corn and said I never grow enough veggies to register them because it's less than 1 acre. Can I apply?
Yeah, you can apply. Yep.
Can agricultural producer cooperatives growing specialty crops apply?
Oh boy, you might have to repeat that one again. Did you got any?
Agricultural producer cooperatives growing
Oh,
specialty crops. Can they apply?
did the cooperative grow the specialty crop?
It says, yeah,
They did.
growing specialty crops.
Okay. I think so. What do you think, Ariel, Brandon? If they
Brandon, would that be okay as long as the cooperative is the entity that's growing and selling the crops?
Let me get that answer and I will let know. Cooperatives.
This one is a question about ownership and risk sharing. Can you share more information on how to demonstrate this for nonprofits with specialty crop growing operations?
So I'm a little foggy on nonprofits, but typically ownership is like represented on board members or something like that. Um, so I think it'd probably be one of the board members that would have to apply.
Depending upon how it's structured, I would just defer that to that local FSA office for that question.
And then I sell flowers and eligible crops. How do I provide verification of sales of my eligible crops? You want to review that, Erik?
Sure. So flowers are a specialty crop. So flowers are okay, as long as you grew them. However you sell them, and you're keeping records of those, whether it's even just some lines in a notebook. I sold this many bouquets at a farmer's market on this day. That's good. That's enough of a record that you could, that's verifiable with the county committee. So you can count that income. It was kind of a two-piece. Did I get the second one on there?
Yep, flowers and eligible crops. So the same for any other eligible crop.
Yeah, the records are up to you, and you don't have to have QuickBooks. It can be just, like you saw mine, it's just a spreadsheet. It can be a handwritten, invoice or receipt that will work.
This question is just kind of asking if sales income from specialty crops can include any sales like CSA, farmers market, sales from any local food assistance programs, and sales that you grow and sell directly to local customers.
Yeah, it is not exclusive of any type of market channel. So your farmers markets, your food hubs, your direct, behind, out your front door type sales, that's all good. As long as it's a specialty crop, that's eligible. The tricky part is a lot of us are selling other things besides specialty crops at all these different market venues. So you really got to go through and piece them out.
And a nonprofit providing land access to specialty crop farmers building their businesses apply, or the farmers themselves who are in the incubator type program, even though they are not the landowners?
The farmers themselves need to apply in this situation, and back me up if I'm wrong there, Brandon. But the owner of the land, right, is not whether it's some sort of nonprofit or something. They're not farming it. They're not generating income off of that land. They're renting it out. So this program is for the farmers who are renting that land and producing the crop.
Yes, it is for producers who grow, have risk, and have that ownership in that crop and that crop sale. So if the incubator farm is just renting everybody the land, but the individual producer is growing on that rented land, the producer of that specialty crop is eligible to apply. Which I would think, if it's going back to the cooperative question on this, it would be dependent upon who has the ownership and the risk in that specialty crop. If the cooperative is a legal entity, they could apply for this. But if it's a group of farmers coming together of saying, I have this commodity, I have this commodity, then each individual producer would be responsible or able to apply based upon their individual growing and risk and ownership in that crop.
Okay, the tax EIN, federal or state tax ID?
I'm thinking it's asking for your federal. The EIN and the TIN are federal numbers. You all probably got your Minnesota or Wisconsin or whatever state you're from, your tax ID on that too. And that doesn't belong on this one.
If you are already a customer of FSA, is the customer data form needed?
Well, like Ariel and I have said, just do it anyway, darn it, because if you don't get it right, you're not going to get your money. So, just fill it out again. If you did it yesterday or something or last month, okay, maybe, but chances are you might not have your entity reported properly. Most of us have probably, signed up for a high tunnel or something like that, and we probably did it under our personal, not our business, or maybe later on we formed the LLC or whatever. So just double check on that and make sure that you're filling it out under the legal entity of your farm as well as your own personal.
Yes, I would say if you want to file it, great. We've caught in a few times when people filled it out that they've changed phone numbers or changed the recent address, added a new email. We use those forms to update our records. So yes, it's if you've already been it, not required. However, if you want to supply us with a pile of paperwork, we can take it and we can process it.
And what if one area of the farm is HELC, so the highly erodible land, but where crops are planted is not listed as HELC area?
Brandon, that form scares me, so I'm gonna I'm gonna go to you.
So the highly erodible and wetland certification, or the 80-1026, that is you certifying that you are not violating any swamp busting or new land breaking laws. So if you are certifying that you're not growing on your highly erodible land, you can certify it however you are certifying on that form. If you do have questions, contact the FSA office what to fill out for the form. You might be referred over to the Natural Resource Conservation Service, or NRCS, as they are the more technical agency of that form, but we use it to go based upon our payment eligibility of that.
It kind of sounds like from this example that they're okay. It sounds like, they've got that highly erodible land, but they're not farming on it. But yeah, definitely double check. You don't want to screw that one up.
I work for a nonprofit CSA farm. Would we qualify since I am the director, but we do not have an actual owner? The land is in a land trust.
If they're producing a crop, then that's probably okay. I don't that. Brandon, you got anything on that?
Ask your local FSA office.
Sorry, folks. That was a good one.
But looking at it, if they are producing the crop, they have the risk, they made the sale. Based upon this program, they are meeting the eligibility of applying for the program. Every application is unique. Every situation, every producer is unique. Best way is default and contact your FSA office. But again, apply and we can take it from there.
This question is about the customer data worksheet, AD 2047. How can you confirm if you are a new customer or updating an existing customer record? Question 1 on the form.
I'd probably just ask the FSA folks, give them a call and say, hey, do I have a record? And then, if you have a record, check updating. Probably if you're not sure, probably just click the update one, because, if they can always tell you to fix it. So if you haven't applied before.
This one, it says when you are filling, or maybe it's filing for your LLC, do you put the same information?
When you're what are you like when you filed your information with Secretary of State, or?
I'm not sure. If somebody wants to put in the chat some details about this, then we can ask more detailed. So if your farm business is an LLC, do you put that information on your application?
If that's the question, yes. Yeah. If you've got a bank account under a legal entity that you have bills going out and money coming in, that is where this subsidy money should be going. So you do need to file as your LLC. So Maple Ridge Produce was an LLC. I had to file as Maple Ridge Produce, and then since I'm a partner in that, I had to file under myself as well. So um, when in doubt, file under your LLC or your legal entity, because if you're missing that, you're not going to get any of these funds.
So you would fill out an application for your LLC, and also you need to fill out for yourself.
Yep, because usually how these institutions work, like a partnership or an LLC, you have members, and then you as an individual of that member also need to apply.
I'll clarify that. If depending upon what forms or things that we're talking about, if the sales are from the LLC, the application for the MASC program should be underneath the LLC. The eligibility documents or any of the things that are needed for the application, completing the application, it's dependent upon how it's structured. If it's an LLC, such as Erik is saying, is the LLC needs to file the eligibility documents and any of the members underneath of it. But if we're looking at just the question of the MASC application, it is who has risk and ownership and sales in the crop. So if it's your LLC, file under that application as the LLC.
We are a sugar bush. Would we only be able to claim the money of our sap-based products, or are any of our syrup would be disqualified?
I think what we have here with our maple syrup producers is a value-added product. So you can claim that income, but it has to be based on your maple sap pricing. And feel free to jump in if I've misspoke on anything here, Brandon, but maple syrup isn't a specialty crop, but maple sap is. So try to find, a wholesale price of sap if you got it, and you're going to have to use that for your income.
Yep, the pricing would have to be based upon the raw commodity. So anything syrup, maple syrup wise, would need to go back to sap. We at the FSA office can help out with a little bit of that conversion. So bring in your information. We can help out trying to bring it back to that raw commodity status of it.
We just talked about this, but we'll repeat it. If you're a single member LLC, is the EIN or your social security number better? Does it make a difference?
I don't think it makes a difference.
I do farm and sell my own produce, and also I middleman other farmers' produce too. Can I include the sales that I middleman?
No, sorry. I do the same. I wish I could, but no, it has to be your stuff. When I don't have, a kale or lettuce at different times of the season, I'll buy it from somebody else and put it in my farm stand, but I can't claim that.
And then a question about the brackets. So for the lower income, $50,000 or less, just to clarify, that gets a larger percentage payback, right?
Yes, with the caveat that don't hold us to any of this. We don't know how it's going to be calculated, but that's typically how it's been done in the past.
Okay. What if your farm is part of an indigenous community, you grow specialty crops and provide to and trade within your community at no cost?
Is there a record of the exchange?
I have a few other FSA members on here, and we're getting clarification on things as well. But the simple answer on that one is if you don't have a sale, unfortunately, there's no payment or revenue to be included on this application. So if it's bartering back and forth, unfortunately, there's no sale to record what that price or revenue was back and forth between each other.
Okay, question about broom corn for brooms. So botanically, it's a sorghum, which is not eligible, but as a crop, it is more like a foliage plant or may not fit into the categories. Can we make a case for a crop not on the list if we have sales records? And then a kind of a follow-up question was, those things that are listed under the ineligible as commodities, many farmers I work with grow sorghum, dent corn, rye, etc. on a small scale, not for commodity. Is there a way to get that clarified?
The scale doesn't matter, unfortunately. So, even if you are growing just a little bit, in a very special kind of way, it's still seen as a commodity under the USDA definition. So that wouldn't work, unfortunately. I totally get it though. As far as like an appeal process to the USDA definition of having broom corn in there or not, I don't know, Brandon. I mean, there is kind of like an appeals process for your county committee for certain things, but I don't know if this would be one of those.
So if the broom corn is made specifically for selling as a broom, unfortunately, it's not an agricultural commodity that you're selling. You're selling it as a broom. So therefore, it's not going to have that agricultural sale of it. Going to that second part of it of requesting to see if it can be added, we don't know the process on that one. We have been given this and what is eligible and what isn't eligible of we're handling it. And with the deadline being January 8th, if we don't have an application, we can't act on it.
I'd say that would be, I get it. I would support it. I think it might not be worth the fight in this case, But yeah, it'd be nice to see broom corn added to that specialty crop definition.
Question about how the payment works. So you're collecting income in 2025 based upon your 2023 or 2024 crop sales, right?
Yeah, you're going to report this almost definitely in 2025. Yeah. I guess it depends on your taxes, which is cash-based accounting. It'll show up on 2025. If you in your own personal books are doing accrual, well, yeah, throw it back on whatever year you filed.
And then if you're participating in a local food purchasing assistance program, also known as LFPA, can you include that income that you made through that?
As long as it's specialty crop, which I think LFPA is strictly specialty crops, isn't it? So yes.
And how about vegetable seeds?
That qualifies under the specialty crop definition. Yep.
If using crop year 2023, can we count the crop that was still in storage in 2024 and income was paid in 2024? Some of the crop would have been paid out in 2023.
I think they're going to look at this in a very black and white way. So if you don't have money coming in 2023, you can't claim it. Even if, on an accrual basis, it would have been for that 2023 year. If it's not in black and white in that year, you can't do it.
And then are market farmers who are sole owner operators of rented land eligible?
Yes, you are. Yep.
What if we live in a different county and our land is in another county? Which FSA office should we use?
I've got many farmers in that situation. Most of the time, they're pretty good about it. Sometimes the different offices fight over them, but you know, if play your cards safe, you could do it in both. Typically, I've seen it go to where the so if they're filing, if they're sole proprietor and it's just them, they probably have their address on the forms. So go with the county that has the address on the form, or go with the office that has the county governed on that form. Brandon, maybe you should answer that one.
I would just say whatever office is closest to you. If you're setting up your file or your customer data, as a new producer, you haven't been into an FSA office before, whatever one is closest for you or whatever is most convenient, please start with them, get it there. We can set you up if we need to. We can transfer forms between the counties and things like that. But if you've never been into a USDA office, but you've been growing for a while, go to your closest one, whatever is going to be quickest for you, and go there.
Another question about agricultural producer cooperatives growing specialty crops. So I know, Brandon, you're going to look into that. If a cooperative can apply, can the individual owners also apply as their own farm?
So that would need to be clarified with the FSA office, because if you're bringing everything together and selling it as, you know, a cooperative CSA or something or another like that, then you would need to come back to as an individual, because if you're individually farming and you have specific crops, you would want to apply as an individual. As far as the cooperative goes, I would need more information of what that cooperative operates as, to be able to say, help out with who should really apply it. I mean, it really goes back down to who has ownership and who has risk in growing that crop.
Another question about ineligible crops. It states that wheat is ineligible. Does that include ancient wheats like red fife?
I'm pretty sure it does. Yeah, sorry, folks.
I stopped at our FSA office, and this assistance was going to be based on a weather, loss of production of a specialty crop, or a disaster.
This isn't a disaster payment. It's just governed on your sales.
So
They
go ahead.
might have been a little taking it a little bit farther of going back to that NAP and then crop indemnities of it. Those can be included, which I would like to clarify on what I said before. It's not the calendar year for that crop insurance or NAP payment. It is federal crop insurance and NAP payments. It matters of when that disaster event or that crop indemnity is going to. So if something happened in 2023, but unfortunately didn't get paid until 2024, you can take those indemnity payments and put it on your 23. If it was a payment for 2024, and as long as it's being paid before January 8th of 2025, you can include it on your revenue sales for 2024 application time frame. So just wanted to clarify that is if it's looking at that crop insurance indemnity, either NAP or federal crop insurance, it can be included depending upon what year you're claiming for your revenue. But going back to that question, it's not a disaster program. We're looking at your revenue sales of specialty crops.
So make sure that you're talking about the MASC program with your FSA office, right? If you are not
Yes.
if you are not a new producer, but have some crops you planted in 2024, like garlic and shallots, can you still count your garlic and shallots that will harvest in 2025?
Okay, repeat that one again for me.
So, if you are not a new producer, you have some crops you planted in 2024, like garlic and shallots. Can you still count your garlic and shallots that you will harvest in 2025?
Yes, that is gonna be okay. But if they're saying they're not a new producer, I'm thinking they probably have some other specialty crops. They've raised that 2024 year. And then if that's the case, you've got to count that income. You can't go off of 2025 if you've had specialty crop income in 2024 or 3.
That is correct. If you've grown a specialty crop in the years before, those revenues for 23 or 24 need decided on how you want to apply. Just because you have crop in the ground that's maybe new for 2025, your 23 or 24 sales revenue needs to be on the application.
I was producing in 2023, 2024, but I planted fruit trees in 2024. Can I put those in my application? They will take 3 to 5 years to start producing. So would that disqualify them for the application?
Let me clarify. You're only putting in income in the application. So I mean, you can tell them that you have these things planted, but you only have to report income for 2024. And it sounds like there's not going to be any, of those fruits coming in yet. So that you wouldn't report that.
And how do you calculate honey on this sheet? So I'm not sure what sheet they're referring to.
That
Honey
I
is-
saw that one come in. It was on the 1141. If you're a new producer,
Oh.
honey is an eligible commodity, and it's if you had sales in 23 or 24, you wouldn't need the 1141 as a new producer. But if you are new, you would probably talk to the FSA office on that one, because there needs to be a little bit of clarification, at least in my mind, on that small snippet of information of the honey. So
And what about frozen fruits?
That works. It's a specialty crop. Yeah.
yeah, just big because you froze it and you're going to be selling it later. If it's a raw commodity, you can report those sales.
I sell seedlings that I grow from seed and plugs. Are these products eligible?
Yes, they are specialty crops. Bedding plants, horticultural plants are considered specialty crops. So yes.
Does that go for the plugs? What if you're purchasing the plugs?
Brandon and I were just talking about this. So the question was, what about flower baskets, right? You buy in the plugs, you put them in the flower basket, and then you turn around and sell that. That's going to be probably a county office question. But what you were saying, Brandon, is there a significant change because of your own management and your own business practice to that product? So if you're just, buying in something and then putting it in a pot and then selling it again, has your business done something to it to substantially change it? And the answer might be yes. Maybe, it's grown into something major. Maybe it's not. So
Okay. For the value-added price of the raw materials, can you use the price of the produce you charge at your farmer's market stand?
yeah, if it is a verifiable, reasonable, and published price, which I would believe if you have that at your farm stand, that is public data. So I would say yes.
And hydroponic crops like lettuce, are allowed in this program, right?
Yep. Yes, they are. Yep.
Yep, as
Um,
long as you're not adding value or that added value expense on there, the raw commodity sale is eligible.
If I have submitted my forms to my county, will they communicate with me if I have completed the forms incorrectly?
They should be following up with you if there's anything missing or unclear with your eligibility documents. As far as your application goes, if there is missing information, yes, they should probably follow up with you. But if all of a sudden you discover that you input a different number or whatever it may be, I would be reaching out back to the FSA office to say, hey, I need to reapply or change this because I did something wrong. Because we're taking that application as you entered it, and we are processing it as that. But if something is missing or needed, forgotten about, likely the FSA office would reach out to you as long as we have contact information for you.
Will we need to have details about every specialty crop we grew? So if you have a very diversified operation and you have your sales numbers, do you need to break it down per crop?
You always have the risk that the county committee would ask for your records. For the vast majority of my farming, I did not track individual sales, especially crops, just how much we're at a certain market channel. So I would try to get it into individual crop. But if you're doing things like if you're selling through a CSA, you can just put CSA and total dollar amount. I don't know if they will take, farmers market ABC this much, farmers market DEF this much. Would you have any idea on that, Brandon?
I would just have it underneath that is, as long as the information is understandable and concise for the county committee to review it and understand where your prices are coming from and your revenue is coming from, that is the best goal there, is making sure that someone, if requested for the documents, it gets picked up and says, where does this $1,000 come from? And you can document that to the county committee. That is the best route. If you can be detailed, great, but highlighting where it can be understood by someone else, not realizing what your operation is, go with that.
I'll just maybe try to put it in an example. So if someone, let's say they reported their sales on farmers markets and they made $1,000 at this farmers market on August 5th, could they, and let's say they get audited, could they then go to the county committee and say, well, okay, it's August 5th, so I've got broccoli and onions and I sell them for this much and I usually have this many yields. So of the 1,000, probably 200's broccoli, 200's onions, 200's green beans. Is that something that the county would take, Brandon?
We at the county office staff would take any information that you supply to us based upon the request from the county committee. It is the determination of the county committee to say, is that acceptable to support the claim? Knowing our appeal process on that if the county committee says this isn't jiving or isn't calculating out correctly, there is that opportunity to request reconsideration, be present, and explain it a little bit further. So there is appeal process if denial happens or more information is needed. But I can't say what would work or what wouldn't work, but supply what you can and we'll bring it to the county committee. They will let you know based upon what they've determined if they need more clarification or anything like that.
And we totally get it. We probably look like we're up here with all our records completely squeaky clean and everything. It's notoriously hard to keep track of all these different specialty crops. It is a very, very difficult thing. So, reach out to one of us connectors and we can try to help you kind of come up with some of these proofs for your records and whatnot. I struggle with you on it.
So another question about honey products. Would beeswax, honeycomb, and pollen also be considered a specialty crop? Brandon, you're shaking your head no.
Unfortunately, it's just the raw commodity of honey.
Okay. What about new crops for perennial farmers? Can we project since we're not ready to sell?
If they're coming online in 2025, you said perennial, right? So it'd probably be, they probably planted them a while ago, and if they're ready to bear fruit, then yes.
Okay. I've got about 10 more questions here. If you have any more questions, you can put them in the general chat, and we'll see if we have time to get to them. Another question about bulbs. So tulips and daffodils are in the ground now and will be sold at market in the spring. Is that eligible for 2025 numbers? What about peony that was not ready until this year, or roses that will be ready for bouquet sales?
Yeah, that would work. Now, if you've got bulbs in this year, my hunch is that you probably had some flower sales this year too. So you got to report the flower sales in 2024. Okay. If you are brand new, like you finally, for the first time have planted your dahlia bulbs this fall, yeah, that works. But I'm guessing you've been selling. So report those 24 sales.
And then another question about perennials, asparagus. I have asparagus. We planted in 2023. We won't be harvesting until 2025. Can I count that if I am using 2023 sales? You're going to say no. That's a no, right?
Yeah, that's a no. If you sold in 2023, you must use 2023 sales.
This one is about honey, keeping beehives on 13 properties in urban Chicago. No leases, handshake agreements. Where do we find out information about the wetland conservation concerns? Do we just call the FSA folks?
Yeah, just call the FSA folks, or actually do one better, call the NRCS folks, which is usually the office right next door. They got a good dial on that.
What forms are specific for both the LLC and the individual?
If you have a if you have a partnership LLC, let's say you and your spouse are both equal owners of the entity, and you have an LLC. So you would have myself and my husband are a perfect example of this. We both are co-owners of Maple Ridge Farms. So we have that LLC, that entity filed, and then I have to file, he's got to file.
And then why is this funding available now? What bill was this part of?
I'll be candid with you. I think this is Biden's last ditch effort to get us produce farmers some money. That might not be politically right to say, but that's, I think, where it came from. We don't really know.
Is CBD? Oh, Brandon, do you want to say anything?
I was just going to say this is the funding came from the Commodity Credit Corporation and is being utilized to help producers in this effort to get kind of more of the market access for them for 2025.
And then is CBD or hemp considered a specialty crop?
No, sorry. That is not a specialty crop. It's very special, but it's not a specialty crop. Hops is though, right? Hops, which is in cannabis, anyway, it doesn't have to make sense.
We've answered, there was a second part, we've answered this a couple times. Is this program or grant incentive happening every year? No, we don't know that. One time. Is there an age requirement? I have a child in horticulture.
Yeah, some of the forms have like, if they're a minor, they have to have their parents fill out a certain point. So yeah, it's possible. Yep.
Yes, if you're under the age of 18 by a certain date, you will need to have your parent or guardian fill out the forms with you, making sure that the payment eligibility forms are done. But I would definitely refer that one to the FSA office, wherever you're going to apply at. But yes, there are minor person provisions that we need to look through as well.
Are agritourism farm tour sales numbers considered a farm good?
No, no. Sorry, folks, you can't use those numbers. This is for a product, a specialty crop product only.
Okay. If I grow and market in both Wisconsin and Illinois, do I need to apply in both states' FSA offices?
Can you repeat that one?
If I grow and market in 2 states, both Wisconsin and Illinois, do I need to apply in both states' FSA offices?
It
Oh.
is one application nationwide.
And
Oh.
No, because you're only going to file where your legal entity is headquartered or where you're personally living. Okay, so wherever, maybe you live in Wisconsin and you sell in Illinois. If the farm is registered, your legal entity is registered in Wisconsin, that's where you file.
Can a new mushroom farm that produces indoors year-round but started selling in September 2024 use 2025 projections?
I kind of think so. I think this is a partial year. Now they had mushrooms in the ground, so to speak. I know they're probably in trays in a building, but boy, ask Brandon, do you have any say on that?
So I would definitely refer this one to the FSA office. However, just knowing the bit of information that has been said is if it was started and nothing was produced until a certain point, some sales were started. This could potentially be a partial year of 24 sales. To potentially do that. Caveat of that would be maybe if they were growing anything else as a specialty crop, those sales of any other year would then be having to be used.
Okay, and if we produced a specialty crop in 2023, it resulted in a loss. The loss was paid by the federal crop insurance program in 2024. Would that income be included?
In 23, yes.
Okay. So I'm going to read some of the questions in the chat that haven't been answered. Some of the connectors and other folks have been answering questions that they're able to. So looks like we have about 10 minutes left and then we'll have a wrap up. So one question was, is your application or award, like your personal information, made public?
I actually believe that was answered, but let me grab it. The official answer is FSA maintains the records on payments made to agricultural program participants in electronic form. In response to public interest in this data, FSA makes it available in 2 ways. It can be downloaded from the website in the forms of flat files, or it can be requested through a Freedom of Information Act. However, what that information is only gives into producers' names and the payments that were done to it. As far as more of your specific information, such as your personal identifiable information, that is not released and it cannot be released to anybody on that. So potentially, yes, if I myself got a payment in a program, someone, which there is websites out there that show payments from ARC PLC to CRP payments and things like that, it could say Brandon Dahl got paid X dollars. But more or less that is public information on the outside of it to your name and potentially that payment that you got. But your information is protected to personally identifiable information.
And another question I got was if the farm number is under your personal name, but we've since started doing business under an EIN, can we use the EIN for the application?
Yep. Use that EIN. It sounds like they are now kind of conducting business under that new EIN number. That's what you should apply with.
If I only sell flowers and specialty crops, can I just use my tax returns for verification of revenue?
Yes, I think that would work. If that's if the only thing you're selling is a specialty crop, then that's the only thing that's going to appear on your Schedule F. So that would be proof.
Should we use USDA market value to estimate price and provide the source to back the pricing?
Yeah, you should. Now, a lot of times that's a national number, so it might not be all that good. So if you could find more local data, you might find a better number, to be very candid.
Are cut flowers limited to only the 10 specific varieties listed?
I don't know, and I would assume not. I would think they would probably include more, but I don't know.
For the cut flowers, I know on if it's people are referring to the USDA definition of specialty crops, it is listed here that the appendices below are not intended to be all inclusive, but rather an intended use to give examples of the common members of each group. So there is potential that there is, but referred to the FSA office, we're going to be having more question and answers to be able to help out producers with some of these specific questions as well. So I would just refer to that FSA office while you're applying.
Great. I'm just looking through the chat. Yeah, another question about like switching business structures, a sole proprietor to an S Corp. Do you need to fill out the forms as a sole proprietor?
So if,
Depends upon what year you're using and what entity or structure was at the time of those sales.
If you have sales in 2023 and 2024, which year do you use?
whatever year you made the most money in.
Whatever year you choose.
Will applying for this jeopardize any other grants or programs like an NRCS program?
Mm.
I guess I would need a little bit more information of what they might be considering, but your application does not affect any other eligibility for any other program.
I bet they're asking this with the, you know, because a lot of times we'll do different grants, and if you get this grant, you can't get that grant, and that's not how this works. If I'm touching on the right nerve there. Um, uh,
Okay, it says, I've always been a sole proprietor. I'm going to be an S corp though.
if you are not an S corp at the time of application, then you don't have to file as an S corp. Just do the sole proprietor.
I'm a sole proprietor with an EIN. Do I use EIN or SSN, Social Security number?
I don't think it makes a difference.
Okay. Okay, I certainly could have missed questions. If I missed your question, will you please type it in the chat? We have a couple minutes left. And then we'll follow up and resources will also be emailed out along with this. Okay, more questions. Let's see. Does this include wild harvested plants that we harvest but didn't grow? For instance, mullein. Is this only for plants? Could it include turtle shells or deer hide?
Are the turtle shells and deer hide a plant?
No, but mullein is.
Okay. Oh, so
Wild
I thought it was like
harvested
the name
plant.
of a wild harvest is plants that are okay. Yep, as long as you have a record of a sale, that's good.
I will take that one. If they don't have risk or ownership in that crop, unfortunately, it's not an eligible sale.
Okay.
So if you're picking a wild plant, unfortunately, you didn't cultivate it. So, and if turtle shells and deer hide is a specific plant and you grew it, potentially, but if it's like an actual turtle shell and a deer hide, unfortunately, no.
As a cut flower grower that makes mainly bouquets, how do I figure out my income? Do I use the sales of bouquets or use the stem prices like one might do in a value added product?
So is this like potential sales in 2025? Because you probably, you know, you just report how you sell them, if you've already been selling them. So like if you sell them in bouquets, just put that income down. If you sell them in bouquets and you sell them by the stem, just include all of that in those sales.
Similar to the wild harvested, if you're harvesting seed from wildflowers where you are managing the land, would that qualify?
That is a great question, and we will have clarification on that coming soon.
Okay. Sweet corn and peas sold to a factory are eligible.
Yes.
Does the FSA committee meet to make these decisions before January 8th?
Yes.
Do you have to show a dollar amount of what you purchased from crops you have grown or just base it on an average of what the industry bears? Example, 1 ton of grapes typically costs $2,000. Can that amount be used?
I'm not 100% sure on this, but the black and white is published, verifiable, and reasonable. So if it is, you know, if it is those three things, I think that would work.
Well,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say the grapes one I know for training, it's dependent upon if they're selling them as the raw commodity, it's whatever their price that they're choosing to do, whatever that market is, that's your revenue sale. But if you grow the grapes and process it into wine or grape juice or something or like that, again, has to go back to that raw commodity price point. And we do have the national crop table available for producers to get that reference price or anything like that. But it is you to provide us that revenue sale figure to apply.
The last question, because I don't think we've talked about this, for a new producer, what if an unforeseen event happens and causes your 2025 income to be less than the estimate?
Hopefully when you're applying for your estimate, maybe the office will talk to you about the NAP program, or the Non-Insured Crop Disaster Assistance Program, which would help protect you against natural disasters or weather events that would potentially affect your production on that. So potentially the benefit of getting this application and potentially that NAP program payment might make it a benefit for both in cases of it.
Great. I'm gonna stop here, and Erik, I'm gonna let you share the next steps and how we'll keep in touch with everybody.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, Laura. We did a bang up job here. Good questions, folks. Again, don't let this be the last time we hear from you and help you. There are events happening all throughout the state. Well, through Minnesota and Wisconsin. Sorry, folks that aren't in those states. I've got one coming up tomorrow at the St. Paul office, and there's several other ones coming up in the next couple of days. Where we can help you in person apply at the FSA office. So tomorrow I'm going to have these different languages available for help. If you want to come and apply and want someone to coach you in a language that's comfortable for you, we're going to have that there. Brandon will be there. I'll be there. And we'll walk you through the application and hopefully have you leave with a completed application. So look for these. Go to that GoFarm website. Keep checking in on them. We're going to post these events as they come in, and we're expecting quite a few of them to happen between now and the 8th. So please keep an eye on that. If you can come tomorrow, great. If you can come to one of these other ones during this time period, please get to one of them, and we can help you fill out these forms. Again, I want to plead with you, please put your name in the farmer intake form or the farmer assistance request form. Even if you think you are 90% sure you can do this, it doesn't hurt to have a helping hand. We are all in this together as specialty crops, even though we are a diverse group of people growing a diverse group of things. So let us help you, and we'd love to get a hold of you and help you if we can. With that, I think I'll turn it over to Katie here. Best of luck to you guys. Again, don't feel like you're alone in this. Reach out if you need anything, and we're going to do our best to help you.
Great. Thank you to our presenters so much for all that information. I have nothing else to add other than thank you for coming, and keep an eye out for an email with the recording and some contact information. So have a great night, everyone. Thanks for coming.